Okay, geographers, let's finish this data stuff. This should be the final video and just downloading data and playing around with it, bringing it into ArcGIS Pro. And so, what I've got here are these different zip files that I downloaded, this map that I downloaded in the previous videos. I've gone ahead and unzipped the ones that were zipped, which you can see up here. Again, as I think I mentioned in multiple videos at this point, if you're not familiar with this zipping thing and unzipping, check out that video that I made on working with compressed or zipped files. Take a look at that. But yeah, I went ahead and unzipped them. And what you see when you open these things up, decompress them here, this one, street center lines, if I right click on it and just hit open, or I could also double left click on it, when I get in there are multiple files, in this case, 6, that all have the same name and then a dot, and it's the extension that's a little different. What this is that we're looking at is a shapefile. A shapefile is a pretty basic but pretty fantastic form of GIS data. And it's called a shapefile, but it's actually multiple files put together. At least 3, it can be 8, 9 different files, kind of depending on what's going on here. And the idea is they all have the same name, different extension. So they're treated as different files on the computer, but ArcGIS is able to look at this and go, "Oh, I get what you're doing," and create just one file that you're looking at. Okay, so the idea is all of these make up this street center lines data file, this shape file. So we got that there. If I go back up, I think a bunch of these are these, yeah, all shape files here. This one, Tran underscore California underscore state GDB. That GDB, whenever we see that, it's a file geodatabase. And so in there, what we see is the name and then the .gdb. And we click on that and it's all just scary stuff inside, but that's a different file type. Yeah, still GIS data, still useful. And each of these, they have their strengths and weaknesses, and there are times when you'd want to use stuff. Um, but in this case, it all works. It's all great, right? But we're dealing with some different stuff. This XML file, metadata, hopefully. This JPEG is a preview of what it looks like. So just a little picture so you know what you're dealing with, what you got. But this is this is the good stuff right there, that .gdb. And of course, that Topanga Canyon map that we downloaded, that's not zipped. It is. It's this big image file right there. So these are our data files, the things we want to work with, the things we want to bring in. And the next move is to open up ArcGIS Pro, right? Open it up, make sure you're signed in. You get to this starting window right here. And so we have options. And at this point, I can't remember which video is coming first or whatever. But at this point, you've probably heard me talk about it. But the idea is we're we're going to be selecting a new map, and you'll also have old projects that you've worked on, or at least the most recent ones listed here. Obviously, if you're just starting this up for the first time, you're not going to have these same things that I have. I don't know if I've mentioned it either. This junk one right here. This is old stuff I picked up on. This is kind of just a workspace to play around with it. And it comes from a cartography professor I had many, many years ago. He worked in a federal agency, and they just had this convention where if they were playing around with things, they would make sure to label it junk so other people looking on the server, checking out the files, would know, oh, okay, ignore this. Don't worry about it, right? It's nothing important. It's just goofy. So that's what that is. I think it's kind of a useful thing to have something where you can just play, explore, and you always kind of know what it is if you maintain that naming convention. But for us, Right now, we're going to do a new project, and we're going to left click on map. And the name, we never want to leave it as my project one or whatever generic thing Esri wants you to have for your deal. We want to name it something that's meaningful, right? So I'm going to I'll do SM for Santa Monica underscore, which is the shift, and it's the little kind of dash button next to the 0 and above the P on most keyboards. So shift and hit that to get that underscore. And I'll do roads. Okay, so SM underscore roads. That's what I'm going to call it. That'll make sense in my head. And it's a case where we never want to have any spaces in our names. Just it goes back to the early days of this stuff where that could screw up your projects, that could cause errors if there was a space that would break the code and things wouldn't work. So just get into that habit. It's a lot better these days, but still, no spaces. You look like a pro when you do that. You look like you've been doing this for a while if you don't do spaces. So it's kind of a hip move. So we'll name it that. We're going to leave this checked, that create a folder. We'll leave it to this default, in our documents, this projects folder. So I'm going to hit OK. And it'll do its thing. And it's going to create and generate and have this new map project open up. And as that's going, what I'm also going to do is right click on my documents thing over here. And I'm going to open in a new window. So what I'm doing, let me move this over, is I want to open up a new window so I can get into Documents, ArcGIS, Projects, fine, what did I call it? Yeah, something SM, Roads, right here. And so I get into this folder, and what I want to do, and this is just to make life easier, I could navigate to my downloads folder through ArcGIS, but it's way easier, I think, to just do this. I'm going to left click, hold, and drag things from my downloads folder over here. All right. And what I'm even going to do, I'll go through, I'm going to grab this stuff right here, not actually put the main folder in there just so that geodatabase is there. Let's do this just to make it easier. I could have been smarter about how I unzip these things, not put them in a separate folder. Bunch of ways you could do this, but I just want to get the actual files in here. And one key thing when you're working with shape files is you want to make sure that you copy, if you're moving, right, putting it in a new location, you bring every single file along to this new spot. Because if I leave one of these out, the whole thing could wind up not working, right? So I want to make sure every single thing is there. So I'll go through this very inefficient way. Because this son of a gun, because that was the one. All right, I'll just move this one over. So what happened there, I guess I should speak to you as I'm trying to teach you. This one, when we downloaded it, same deal, but we got this from the Santa Monica website. So we put that SM on there. So I, changed the name of what we saved, but inside there, it was the same deal. I'm just going to copy that in the folder to avoid having to rename everything. We'll play along with it. Hold on. But let's get these streets of significance over and street centerline. So I'm just copying everything over here to slap it all in there. Okay. So I got all that. And just for good practice, I'm going to delete everything from my downloads folder so that, I don't keep adding to it and have stuff get lost. I copy that there. And now back here in ArcGIS, if I look in the catalog pane over here on the right, just go to folders, and I've got this main project folder. Yeah, beautiful. I should see these things I just copied over, right? And what you notice, like we have this national highway system, Let me show both of these next to each other. Come on, don't get silly. So here, let's say street center lines. That's highlighted right here. I've got the CPG, DBF, PRJ, all these different things. If I look in ArcGIS, it's drawn as a single file. And it can be kind of confusing. It says .shp, but it's looking at all of these things, right? That's why it was crucial to bring them all over at the same time. And it gives you that little green icon. The lines in there indicate that this is a line file, right? Data file. So it's a series of lines. If it were polygons, right? Some different shapes in there, closed polygons, it would have a different icon. And if it's simply points, right? Dots on the map, it has a different icon. So you kind of learn to see what, read these and get a sense of what's going on. These little grid looking things indicate a raster image of some kind. This is stuff you'll be reading about, but with a raster, we're talking about a grid. So, like a JPEG, any digital image that we have, it's a raster. It's made up of different grid cells or pixels or whatever. So, it's telling us that's what this is. Okay, same thing with the map that we have here. That GDB, it's our geodatabase. We can expand this and we can see what's actually in here. Open up this little data set, see these different feature classes. And this is the nice thing with a file geodatabase is you can have a lot of stuff stored in here. Whereas a shapefile, it's just one thing, one feature class, as we'd call it. So, a series of rows. That's it for this particular file. And then, of course, that folder that we brought over, if I open that up, it's got this stuff in there. Okay, so this is the nice thing about creating that new map project, making sure to open up or create a new file or folder rather in your downloads or documents or wherever it's saving there. It's because we can move everything in there, keep it all contained. We know where our data files are located. We can find this stuff. So it's worth taking the time to just move all this stuff over initially. All right. Then what I'm going to do, let's go ahead and close this one. All right. So let's go ahead and do this one. It's a lot. What's this clip? Clip poly. That's probably just California. Let's try this trans_road segment. I'm just going to left click, hold, and drag. And it will draw it where it's supposed to be. And this one is massive. And there we go. And it's fine. You can see it's spinning right there. And if you click something and you stop it from drawing, you can hit this refresh and it'll redraw the thing. But what we have is this massive, massive file of all sorts of roads running through California. All right. So what I'm going to do to get to our general location is with my keyboard and my mouse. So it's always good to have an actual mouse if you're working on a laptop. Attach a mouse to it rather than use the trackpad because you can work a little more efficiently. There's more we can do. But I'm going to hit Shift, okay? And then that'll change my cursor to this magnifying glass with the plus sign. And I'm going to draw a rectangle. But to do this, I'm going to left click and hold and then drag to the opposite corner and then unclick on my mouse, right, to zoom into a specific area. Okay, and I'm going to do it again to come into this coastal area. And let's see, since I'm done with this, let me go ahead and expand all this stuff so we can see it. And I can uncheck over here in the contents pane, uncheck the actual data file until I get to my general location. I'll come in even tighter. This is more or less where we're at. And I can turn this back on. And so you can see we've got a lot of roads, a lot of detail. This looks like a good file that we happen to find. What I can also do is bring in this Topanga Canyon map. Just again, left click and drop. That not work. Why are you freaking out? Come on. There we go. Okay, you're thinking. So it asked, hey, you want me to do this calculation? Go ahead and do this. It's a case where it's going to hopefully make it draw a little faster, help with some performance. I don't see any negatives to doing this. So I'm going to hit yes. You can check, always use this choice if you feel confident. I never check these, usually because I'm always teaching stuff and I want these things to pop up so we can talk about them. But you can do that if you want. I'm going to say yes, calculate them statistics. Beautiful. There we go. So it draws this map where it should be, right? We can see it line up. And if I come in here where they overlap, oh, this is beautiful. This is exactly what I wanted to see. It's off, right? That's something that we need to deal with. We need to be aware when dealing with different data sources and all that. Let me change the color. Kind of hard to see. I'm just going to left click on this. They call this swatch. I think they still call it that. And you can see it saying click to modify symbol. I just left click there. It gives me some options. You have these pre-loaded things. I usually don't do those because I'm my own man. I don't need the software to tell me what to do. But in here on properties, click on that. I can change the color. It's a big thing. I'm going to do something garish, and I'll up the line width to 3 points, and I'll hit apply, and it really shows up now, right? That's harsh. I would rarely actually make a map that looks like this, but it's this way I can see what's going on here, right? What's actually happening with the lines versus the map itself. I can uncheck any of these to see what's happening. And what's interesting is, so this modern uh, feature class, the pink lines that we have here, seems to match up with this free base map that Esri put in, right? So if I uncheck that, kind of go back and forth, there's some different ways to look at this stuff we'll get into later. But I can see that these lines pretty much line up with the existing roads, which makes you kind of question this past map. And there can be a few different reasons for this. It could be just that, yeah, the map is a little off because we weren't dealing with, GPS and fancy survey equipment and all these things when we're putting that together. It could be a projection issue, some stuff that we'll talk about later on. There are ways to fix this and adjust things and all that we'll cover later on in other courses in this certificate program. It's a few different things that could be going on. But the main thing is I just want to be able to look, see what's happening. How do these things line up? So I've got those there. The next thing I want to do before I continue with anything else is I want to get rid of this world topographic map and this world hill shape. Let me uncheck these. What I'm talking about is this stuff underneath, and I may have already said this in another video, but the idea is we don't want to rely on this stuff, okay? We're better than this. This is nice to just see where's Santa Monica, where's the general area I'm interested in, find it, zoom to it. But this is very limiting. It's not a pro kind of move, right? You're the one who makes these maps. You don't have somebody else do it. And think about it, why would someone pay you to do this stuff, to be a GIS professional, when they could turn this on and just make maps with this stuff, right? So what I want to do, not even just uncheck, but I want to remove. So I right click and I remove. Say, get out of here. And this underlying hill shade, right click, remove. I don't need that. I'm a pro. I can turn this stuff back on to fill my spooky white space back there. But that's the big deal with all these maps in here, unless I state otherwise, get rid of that underlying base map. We are better than that. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit save. So up here, save project. I could hit Control S. A few different ways to do this, but it doesn't auto save. I mean, why should it? It's only, thousands of dollars that this software costs right here. Why on earth would they have something as simple as autosave? So I'm just going to hit save. And you want to save as often as you possibly can and whenever you do anything of significance, because things crash and it has problems and all sorts of issues. And it's frustrating to have to go back and try to rebuild what you've been working on. So hit save early and often. Okay, I got that. Now I'm going to come down here to the lower right and I'm going to click on this catalog tab. Right. So every time you have these different panes show up, they just kind of add to the side here and you can cycle through them. And if you lost this, if you can't find it, just go up here to view, hit catalog pane, and this will pop up. Okay. Also, I don't know if I've mentioned it in other videos or not. If your contents window disappears, which for some reason students do this all the time, they X out of this and don't realize they X'd out of it, and then they freak out and go like, "Oh, where is it?" Same kind of deal, right? View contents comes right back. Right? Nothing is permanently destroyed as you're doing this stuff, or it'll warn you like, "Hey, you're about to really screw this up. You sure you want to do this?" Or it'll ask you to confirm stuff. So don't worry. All right, back in the catalog pane, what I want you to do, this is what you're going to be turning in to show you've done this stuff, is I want you to bring in these different files. All right, so like street center lines is another one. And we're going to see, do they line up? It's not perfect. Let me turn that off. You can see it's not exactly the same. Now, in some cases, like this one, and I might go, like, what road is this? I wasn't paying attention. I can left click on the segment and it'll pop up right here, what it is, all this information that comes from the attribute table that exists in these files. Okay, so it's a case where all of these things, they have the shapes and the nice little, road lines and that stuff, but it's also connected to a table that has relevant data in there that can be helpful. All right, so if you come down, this is on the left, this is the field for the table, and then the right is the actual information for that specific segment that I clicked on. So it's asking, is it an interstate or state route or whatever? It's not. That's what that null means. It means no data. Name, this is the key thing. It's 4th Street. That's what we're looking at, right? It's designated as a local road. If I click on another one, okay, we get the name right there. And there's a huge host of fields in this stuff. That's just how it works. All right, so that's how we can see some of this. But with some of these, it makes sense. If we're looking at center lines versus, just how they're drawing the roads, okay, there can be some difference. In some cases, with this one, it's, more or less in the same area. It's just a little different, right? But what I want you to do is bring in these different things that we've, downloaded and analyze them, look at them, just compare them, right? We can see the streets of significance and center lines. Looks like is that a little off there? Or is that, it's hard to see what's what. Let me change this color. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, these are off a little bit. Just kind of interesting, right? To see that. And there are reasons for it, as I've said, stuff we don't need to get into. But what I would like you to do is bring these in, overlay them on the map, make some different colors so they stand out, and see like this one. Oh, now it's really It's just hurting my eyeballs looking at it. I'm going to tone this guy down a little bit. I don't know if that didn't really, it just made it different obnoxious, but you get the idea, right? Bring these things in. Some of them, like this national highway system, if I uncheck it, it's hardly any of the roads here because it's looking at the really big ones, right? Not these local streets. But again, the idea being bring this stuff in, also have this map in here. What I want to see is just these things overlaid in here, right? Where they are. Zoom into an area where everything overlays. Make sure it's visible, legible. I can see what's going on in here. You're welcome to, if you want, although it might get really busy, you can right click on one of these. I'm going to do this. Actually, let's do significance. Let's just label those. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to label. Beautiful. And it worked. I don't even have to change stuff in here. But so we've got Montana Avenue, Lincoln Boulevard, just the big ones are labeled. So you can add these labels so we can see it, but also, show us where is this, how are these things overlaid in here? If you don't like this or if it's not totally clear, one thing you can do, right click, labeling properties. We can leave this as is, but as we go into symbol, I never want to do Tahoma because that's anybody can do that stuff. So I'll just do one of these, and pick something that looks good. I can leave it at that 10 point, but this halo down here is kind of nice. To a white halo size. Let's just hit apply, and so it puts that white outline there. So it's a little easier to read. And looking at this, that 10 point actually kind of hard to read, so I can bump it up. What does 16 look like? That's a little easier for me. Maybe I want to go down and up that halo to 2 to really make it pop. Beautiful. Okay, so label some of these roads, bring all these things, overlay them. And then what I want you to do is create a pretty simple layout, right? So if we come back up here to our ribbon thing, just remember, and again, I don't know if I've really gotten into this yet with you, probably have at this point, but just click on these and you'll see these different tools that pop up. Some of these things are going to make sense right now. Some of these things, we're not even going to touch in this intro class or whatever. But what we want to do is from here, go to insert and do a new layout. Okay. I'm going to select, I'll just do letter landscape. We tend to stick with this ANSI system. I don't know if I've never known if you're supposed to go ANSI or ANSI, or I don't even know what it stands for. It's the one. Typically, I've used in GIS stuff, this architectural stuff. Don't worry about, some of these other systems. Don't worry about. This is pretty standard in, working for government agencies and stuff like that, working with wide format printers, getting into these big sheets. What I'm going to do is just simply letter landscape, left click there. It produces this. And then it's, kind of silly, I think. I mean, of course, I want to put this one map in this one layout, but you got to tell it. And I guess I get the reason why, but still, I think it's silly. So I'm going to, I didn't explain that at all. Hold on, let me go. So I went from here to map frame and map just this one. We can see the thing we've been working on, right? I'm going to left click there. And then I left click and hold and draw my little rectangle wherever I want it. And I'm just going to more or less fill the page. Okay. And this is something you want to get in the habit of is take that map data, use it, right? Like fill the page with that. All the other stuff, your title and your legend and these things, keep it tiny and off to the side so we can reference it if we need it. But if I'm looking at a map, I want to look at the map, right? So I want something like this. Okay, just had a little blip there. Sorry, this probably looks weird. I'm not going to edit this to make it seamless. So I'm continuing what I was just saying, which feels like an eternity ago, but you just saw, was the idea that we get our layout, we make the map big, we have our other elements off to the side. Okay, that's what I was saying. So with this, we've got this map, and the idea being that I've taken the time to make it pretty, make it attractive. These colors, I'm not happy with. It's too difficult to see. So try to make them nice. It's going to be an ugly map anyway because you're just bringing a bunch of lines that almost are the same but not quite. But do your best. But then from here, once we have this, well, two things. Number one, save. Always save. So I'll save that there. But then from here, select some elements to make it, a final product. So I'm going to do, if I scroll down, I'm going to grab this little rectangle box thing from the graphics and text. I don't know what you call that little section in this part of the ribbon, whatever the terminology is. And so my first move, what I always do, is I'm going to draw a rectangle in which I can put all of my map elements. All right, so it doesn't matter where exactly it goes. You can change this, but I like to do this first just so it sets it there and I can contain everything. You'll notice in this contents pane, rectangle, this pops up right here. I can right click and go to properties. I can also, I think, double click it. Over here, I can go symbol, and the color, it's transparent, but I want to do something, right? So that it actually blocks that portion of the map. And so you can see my north arrow and scale bar, whatever it is I utilize. Okay, you can do white. You can do something to kind of blend in, like a yellow to kind of go along with the yellowed color of that underlying map. Doesn't matter. You want to change the outline color, it doesn't have to be black. In fact, you can do that yellow and do kind of one of this, I don't know, this vomit yellow. I don't know what that color is. But you can do that just to kind of make it blend a little more. However you want to do it. It's up to you. No wrong choice at this moment. But I got this here. And then I can get in and start adding my elements. First thing I want to do, let's give it a title. Now, if you do dynamic text, it'll give you some options, like it should have somewhere, name of map. Well, it's just going to say map. It's referencing the fact that I haven't renamed this thing or given it a clever name. It just says map. If you scroll down, I think there's like the file name is somewhere in here. I don't know. The point being, don't worry about this. We use this later on. There's some things that are useful for, but for us, no. All I'm going to do is I'm going to use this little text box thing. And what's the difference? We got straight text, straight text. Well, all right, let's use straight text. I'm going to draw a rectangle, try to fill the space. Yeah, it'll bring it to a certain size. And I'll call this just Santa Monica Road Data. Okay, I'll do that. Now, of course, it goes way too far. I can highlight the whole thing, or I can click out of it, or whatever. Go to text symbol. Never use Tahoma. Never use the default. So I'm going to change that. I used this 20th century font on my thing. It's good to be kind of consistent with that. So I'll go ahead and use that. I'll make it bold. The size, well, let's see. If I hit apply, it still should be a little smaller to kind of fit where I want it to fit. So it's 32. Let's see what 26 looks like. And we use maybe even a little less. Do I have 24? I do. Let's do that. Gorgeous. Never been happier. Put that somewhere. And again, I can resize things and all of that. But this is what I want to do. I want to be entering this stuff, in order. Put in the rectangle. Put in a title. I want a north arrow. Yeah, I want a north arrow. I can select from here. And we'll talk about good options as we move forward. We'll get a little bit into proper cartography in this intro class. But the idea being just something simple, okay? Like this one right here, an arrow with the N next to it that looks very, kind of engineering, very civic. So the idea being that just fits with the theme of the data and all of that. We're not using this map to sail around the world. So doing some elaborate compass rose, it would look weird and ridiculous. So for something like this north arrow, some of these initial ones would be good. Just like we don't use Tahoma, I highly encourage you not to use this one because it just says, I don't know, I got to pick something, and you pick the first one, right? There's nothing wrong with it necessarily, but at the very least, get one of these where it shows that you moved your cursor over like a millimeter. So I'm just going to pick this one. All right, I can just click and it'll pop in, or I can do the rectangle thing. Let's just click it. Okay, now one thing to be aware of is I have these rulers over here, right, that show me the page. So it's 8.5 inches by 11 inches right there. But use that as a guide to see just how big your north arrow is. Because sometimes you throw a north arrow on the thing and just the way it looks on the screen, it looks way too tiny. So you make it big. I mean, this clearly looks ridiculous. Hopefully, this clearly looks ridiculous to you. But you do something like this, and then you're going to print the thing to actually, hand it off to somebody. And you realize that's ridiculous, right? If I drag this over here, you can see what are we talking about? 2.5 inches. That's way too big and takes focus away. So, like something like this, an inch or less is all we need. And you can see as you're shrinking it too, it's giving you the dimensions and that width and height. So just figure it out. And you can continue to change it so it fits with everything else. But what I want you to do for your final map is come into this layout view, like we did, get your little rectangle, put in a title, north arrow. Let's add a scale bar. I'll leave it to you. You have options here and ways to mess with stuff. For now, put something in, play around if you want, but just add a scale bar. We'll get into how we mess with this later on. And also add a legend, which will give us, let me just click one of these, experiment with it. But I'll do this. So with this, okay, we have the different layers that are on in here. Okay, this National Highway System, Streets of Significance, and so on. And it shows the color that goes along with it. That's useful. This Topanga Canyon map, not so much useful because it's just giving us that red, green, and blue bands. It's kind of confusing and hard to know that that's this underlying map. Okay, so what I want to do is tweak this a little bit. So put in the legend, you're going to include that. But over here, we're going to make some changes. Okay, number one, first rule of GIS. They're like 80 first rules. But the main thing that I want you to think about right now is never put legend on top of your legend, right? Because that's silly. You don't put map on the top of the map itself. We didn't have to put north arrow on our north arrow. This is a chump move right there. So we don't want to do that. To get rid of it, I think if we just do that, yeah, perfect. Uncheck that. We can get rid of it. We could also relabel it. We could call this, like road data or something like that if it seemed necessary, but we're just going to uncheck it. So I don't want to see legend on your legend. In here, let's see. I always forget. Or wait, no, is it over here? This is where it's at. Yeah, over here on the left. Uncheck any of these things, it'll go away from in there. So that Topanga Canyon one, just get rid of it. Just have the ones that are there. These red dots are showing me that as it's currently drawn, I believe, can I fix that? Okay, well, I don't know. There's a way to fix that. I don't mess with this stuff enough to really totally care. We'll get into that too later, how you can tweak this stuff and customize this stuff later on. But yeah, just get rid of that Santa Monica, or not Santa Monica, the Topanga Canyon map from underneath. I want you to change the font, no Tahoma. But what you can also do is see all these underscores. That's great in terms of file types, but over here, I want you to get rid of them. Okay, so what I want you to do is get rid of the underscore simply by clicking, so twice slowly. You can also right click. Wait, hold on, let me right click and do properties. And in name, you can type this stuff here as this pops up, right? So different ways to get at it. But you note as I change this here, it changes over here. And this looks like actual language, not this weird computer stuff. So do a couple of things. Get rid of these underscores to make this stuff normal. This trans underscore road segment, get rid of the underscore. You can get a space in there, but also make it something normal, right? And for each of these, like the street center lines, we got this from the city of Santa Monica. Put in from where they came, right? And whichever one of these, I forget now. It's been so much going on. But if this came from the state of California, put California in it. Or if it came from the USGS, put USGS. All right. But relabel these things so it's very clear. So when I get your map, I see what you did. I see which file is which in terms of, the green one is this one. It came from this website, all that stuff, right? That's what I want to see, that you not only downloaded it, but you put it in and you had a little control with this stuff. You dig? Once you're happy with this, once it's everywhere, everything is where you want it to be, it looks good, it's a gorgeous, sexy map, hit save, always hit save, and then go into share, export layout, right? So let's just click it. You can do this for these presets, but just click it here. And for the layout file type, I want you to save it as a JPEG. Make sure you know where you're saving it. It's just going to put it in that, by default, in that projects folder. That's a good place to save it, but give it an actual name, not just layout. But what I would do is do, SM. Let's see, let's do it this way. SM roads map. And I'm doing all underscores. And then I put my last name in there just so I know exactly what it is. So it's clear. Everything's good. This stuff, I'm going to leave it as is. This should all be good. So I'll hit export in progress. But once it saves that, beautiful. I've got, let's view, shall we? Let's view this exported thing. So now I have that map, but it's just a nice clean JPEG so anybody can view it, right? This is what you're uploading into Canvas to turn in. So once it's all done, export it as a JPEG, upload that sucker, and you're done. And you've downloaded data, you've brought it in, you are self-sufficient, right? You should feel pretty good. So excellent work, geographers. Until next time.